Hello and welcome. This is Michael Beach, and you are dialed into the What Are You Doing podcast. This is the show for thought leaders who are investing in the next generation of leadership for their organization. And this is also the show for emerging leaders who want to become that next generation of great leaders. Together, we can develop the next generation of great, dynamic leaders who will lead their organizations to great success. All of us at Michael Beach Coaching and Consulting are excited to be able to bring you another podcast episode today. We love contributing to the success of forward-thinking, fast growth companies who are changing the world day after day. Well, listeners, let me tell you more about Clint. In his role as COO, Clint oversees all aspects of the operations of the construction business at Gray Mechanical. Gray Mechanical is a licensed heating, ventilation, air conditioning, and plumbing contractor that provides services for general contractors and building owners throughout the great state of Texas. Clint and his team specialize in the installation of HVAC and plumbing solutions for healthcare, commercial, office, retail, government, education, and also industrial projects. Clint, it's my pleasure to have this opportunity to speak with you today. Another topic for you, communications. Communications is a key ingredient to building a robust and sustainable culture in an organization. I'd love to ask you, Clint, what you and your leadership team are doing to enhance the clarity around the vision at Gray Mechanical. What are you trying to get your followers to understand?
Yeah, it's easy getting caught up in the day-to-day grind and forget to be living and breathing the vision to everyone. Because if you don't go deliver what the company needs to be doing, where we want to go, what our patterns need to be, what our leading indicators, and where are we trying to go with this thing? If you don't do it as a leader, don't expect your team to go find it.
Sure.
So we know where we want to go, and sometimes we forget to tell everybody. So this year we made it a pretty big effort. Being in the construction business, it's not very common to get every single employee together in the same spot as it would be in a lot of other businesses, because by and large, 150 plus of our employees do not come to our office ever. Rarely do they come to our office.
They go to the work site.
They go to the work sites, right? They go to the job sites, and they're spread out all around Houston and Texas. So, so getting everybody together to really understand that vision is very tough. So we take we take the opportunity around Christmas time to bring everybody in and deliver that message. But the intermediate messages that have to go out have to trickle down with all of our field leaders and all of our managers at the manager level here in our business. So during our one-on-one meetings and during our operations meetings and group meetings, we talk a little bit about our plan, and we've put a VTO together. That's a vision traction organizer. And that shows, a lot of data, a lot of things, what our revenue projections want to be, what ratio of construction and service we're really shooting for, what we're focusing on, who our clients are, those kind of things. That helps promote our vision. And the biggest thing that I could say, I guess, about our vision is that it can never be BS, right? It needs to be something that people can actually see as tangible and achievable.
Right.
We're going to do around $40 million in revenue this year. If we put on paper that we want to do $440 million of revenue in the next 2 years, people are just going to look at that and go,
how are we going to do that?
Yeah, you're going to hire 150 more people in here? There's no way. So it's got to be reasonable. It's got to be talked about, and there's got to be a path. And it's up to leaders to keep people on the path.
Thanks for sharing that with us. My impression is that your organization works pretty darn closely with other companies in your industry to collaborate on amazing products, services, projects that make a big difference for your customers at the end of the day. Can you help our listeners to learn a little bit about what you've learned over the years, what makes a business partnership work?
Absolutely. One of the most frustrating things that I come across in day-to-day business is people not honoring their word or not otherwise doing what they committed to do.
Sure.
We're still very much of the mindset that our word is our most solid bond. We're very much a handshake is the deal, and we honor what we say we're going to do. And sometimes in the business or sometimes in the industry, that mentality isn't always reciprocated. So finding those partners that share the values that we have is so critical to our success, mutual success, actually. We have to find clients, owners, general contractors, vendor partners, subcontractors of ours that have a level of ownership that we do. And I like to think that we are a little different in our business and that we carry ourselves a little different. So as you can imagine, that's not an easy thing to do.
Right.
But when you do find them, you bring them to the table every time you get the opportunity. And just being totally honest with you, with each section of vendors and subcontractors that we do business with, there aren't very many. There's 2 or 3 different people we do business in town for each individual thing that we buy or partner with. That's it. And that's by design. And sometimes that leads to us not having the most advantageous price.
Right.
But our delivery method is going to be better. And when we have the freedom to assemble our own teams with our vendor partners and subcontractors, it's hard to beat our delivery method. I think it's first class, and I think it's the best way to go do it from a pre-construction standpoint, design assist, and carry it throughout the budgeting phase, all the way through execution and into maintaining and service. So I'm a big fan of that method, but having that mentality isn't always the deal in the construction business, right? A lot of people are looking for the cheapest,
right?
And we're just not those. We're not that contractor. We're not going to be the cheapest. So
you guys are trying to deliver the highest quality that you possibly can.
Exactly.
Well, the last few years have been an incredible challenge with the effects of the pandemic, the increase in volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity, all the change that's been going on. What lessons have you learned from the challenges and the adversities that have crossed your path in the last 3 years?
It's no secret. Our business was impacted in a lot of the same varieties that most businesses were impacted, with supply chain and demand reducing, work stoppages, jobs getting put on hold, uncertainty. But sometime around the middle part of last year, we just got a little tired of talking negatively about the pandemic. And said, you know what, let's find the good out of this thing. What's the good? For any of your listeners who are not familiar with Jocko Willink, go to YouTube and type in the word good and then Jocko Willink and watch that video. It's one of my
I've done that.
Yeah, it's
pretty entertaining stuff.
I tell you, it's on my workout routine on Spotify. It'll come on whenever I'm jogging or something, and I'm just like, God, this thing is solid gold.
Right.
So what's the good? What's the good that came out of this? We adapted and implemented flexibility for our team members. We went through hard times, but going through some hard times allows you to see everybody's true colors and where their real motivations lie. And I thought, whenever you go through adversity with somebody, you get to see their colors, their character, if they're going to fold on you, if they're going to take advantage of the situation. Like I can't even begin to describe how many people I saw golfing on Tuesdays on working from home, different organizations and poor companies are just getting killed by people taking advantage of it. And and I was really proud to say that we didn't have hardly any people taking advantage of the situation with our business. We never closed.
Great sign.
Yeah, we never closed. We implemented flexibility. We allow people to, if they were uncomfortable, we certainly weren't going to impede on that. At some point, we're going to get through this. Like this is going to be behind us, and we need to position ourselves so that we're ready for that. Because all this pent-up demand is going to nail us right in the forehead, and I want to be ready for that.
Right.
And so, I would say the biggest positive that I saw out of this was seeing who was committed and who remained vigilant in that span of time. And, in the military, they call it, combat tested. Who's done their tours, and, we're certainly not fighting each other for a living, but I call those people combat tested. They were very much put to the test. Their mental capacity, their mental strength was tested when the whole world wants to shut down and everything stops, and they want to keep going and support this thing and, pick up a load and start dragging it. I was really impressed by a lot of people who unsolicited did that. So instead of harping and moaning about all the bads that happened during the pandemic, I'd really enjoy talking about some of the goods that came out of that.
Yeah, well, you just did a great job of doing that, for sure. I was really impressed. I was sitting close at hand while you went through the pandemic as an organization. And I was very impressed that you guys didn't fold up the tent, didn't close your doors, didn't feel sorry for yourselves. You just decided, you know what, we're going to get on with this. We've got a job to do here.
That's right.
We've got customers who need us more than ever now, and we're going to do the best work we can under whatever circumstances we find ourselves in. That was a courageous approach, and I applaud you and your teammates for it.
It was tough. There was certainly no shortage of challenges with that mentality.
Well, Clint, I've arrived at my final question for today. I want to give you a chance to step up onto the soapbox a little bit. I know that you're a voracious reader on many topics like attitude, vulnerability, leadership, remaining humble, just to name a few. Is there a book you'd like to recommend to our audience?
Sure. I find that I'm the most physically and mentally strong when I'm in a routine that involves reading books that interest me.
Okay.
If I am down for whatever reason or lacking discipline in the mental department or the physical department, it almost always coincides with long dips in not reading, not developing. And recently, I've been really into books about nutrition, happiness, and healthier lifestyle choices. I certainly subscribe to the mentality of reading books about things that I'd struggle with. So if I'm struggling with something, whatever it is, the first thing I do is usually go find a book from a reputable author, and I try to read about it so I can create my own plan to try to dig myself out of whatever hole I'm in. So I subscribe to that mentality to get as much help as you can with whatever you'd like to have. So the classics, the books that I recommend to everybody: Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink and Leif Babin, Emotional Intelligence, and one of my favorite, it isn't necessarily a business book, but it's called Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. Those are three of my favorite just overall books, and the most impactful for me, I would say, from a personal standpoint and a career standpoint. The specials of the month, of the last couple of months, I've read The Power of Positive Thinking by Norman Vincent Peale.
Yes.
And I tell you, that was incredible for recalibrating and refocusing on what's important to you. It's an incredible reminder. It's got a ton of reminders littered throughout the book about what's important, where your priorities should be,
right,
and how to facilitate a good environment. And I have since spread that same book and that same recommendations to multiple people in the office, and they echo a lot of the same sentiment. I'm very proud of that. Spoke a little bit about Raising Men by Eric Davis earlier. That's one of the best books I've ever read about setting and living an example to be a great father. I care a lot about that. I wrote a book summary on it.
Nice.
So I just read the book summary so I can, if I want to high level it, and I've sent it to a lot of people in our organization. Strongly recommend that. A couple of health related books. I read a book called The Hungry Brain. It's about outsmarting the instincts that make us overeat. It dives into the brain function and how we've evolved to eat and live the way we do, and just how bad that is.
That's great.
Written by an academic. It's not necessarily the fastest reading, but it's very good. There's two more, or there's one more. I'm about halfway through a book called How Not to Die. It's every chapter is a how not to die from heart disease, or how not to die from high blood pressure, how not to die from diabetes, so on and so forth. It's written by a PhD, and his whole approach is something that I generally agree with. He's very much a vegetarian. I'm not a vegetarian, but his methods and the way that he describes things and the way that he approaches it is from a prevention standpoint. And he is of the mindset that diet is one of the best preventions for
Absolutely.
better health. And every chapter is very interesting, very solid.
Cool.
I've been sharing it with people in our groups. And then, I can't remember the last time I listened to the actual radio in the car. I got a 30 to 40 minute commute every day to and from work. I'm an avid listener of Andrew Huberman's podcast.
Okay.
Peter Attia's podcast. He's a cancer surgeon, Wall Street trader, mechanical engineer, physician, just a wildly incredible human being.
Yeah.
And I listen to a lot of Joe Rogan podcasts too. So there's so much information. One of the most underrated things that have ever happened to our species is the invention of podcasts and the data that you can get just while you're driving. You can't read a book while you drive.
Right.
Listening to audiobooks is good, but there's also something that's a little bit more impactful whenever you're listening to two people have conversations, or you're listening to somebody you trust give you advice or talk about a variety of different things. So I strongly recommend those podcasts if your listeners are interested.
Well, I hope they're interested in podcasts. Otherwise, we're not going to have a very large audience.
That's right.
Well, audience, I will tell you, I have known Clint May now for 4 or 5 years, and he's made a number of fantastic book recommendations to me. I try to return the favor every once in a while, and I've got work to do there. But I've read several of the books that he has recommended to you today. Some of them I reread because he reminded me about them. One that was particularly entertaining to me this summer, I listened to the David Goggins book on Audible, and I was equal parts shocked by how disturbing his life was when he started to turn things around. And I was inspired every day when I listened to the rest of that book by this man's incredible mental resilience and mental toughness and the things he put himself through to get his life to where it is today. And take any one of these book recommendations and you'll be glad you did. Well, that's our episode, Clint May, everybody. Clint, I want to thank you for being a terrific guest today, providing our audience with some very thought-provoking insights. Really appreciate you joining us, sharing your experiences with our listeners. Couldn't summarize for you how much I appreciate you. Thanks so much.
Yeah, man, it's a pleasure to help you out. It's a pleasure to be on here. I'm flattered that you would invite me to do it, and I've thoroughly enjoyed our time working together, man. I really appreciate it.
Well, I'm glad we had you here today. You delivered the goods, my man. Well, listeners, that's our episode for today. I want to thank again our special guest, Clint May, the Chief Operating Officer for Gray Mechanical Contractors in Houston, Texas. Clint was generous with us and shared his experiences and wisdom with all of you. We appreciate it. Our next episode will be ready to be released in a few weeks. We're excited to announce that our next show is going to feature yet another dynamic leader in our ongoing effort to give you insights into what makes leaders great and then ultimately what makes their companies great. Thank you, listeners, for joining us today, and please reach out to us at info@michaelbeachcoach.com if you've got a terrific suggestion for a future episode guest, or maybe you just want to become a featured guest yourself. We'd love to have you. We'll look forward to spending our next episode together with you. Until then, be an investor. You need to be investing in yourself so that you can be the very best you can possibly be. At the same time, you need to invest in the people around you so that they can be the very best that they can possibly be. And finally, you need to teach everybody around you how to collaborate with one another so that every member of your team is raising the level of the entire team collectively at every moment. Those are the elements of a team as they begin to build a dynasty. We'll see you all next time.